Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, there is a very specific, almost universal feeling that every university student knows.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, it usually hits about 3 weeks before the end of the semester. You're sitting there, it's late, you've got a lukewarm coffee, and you are staring at a PDF on your laptop.
Slide number 47 of 100.
Exactly. And on the screen, there are just these two lines crossing each other, the classic X.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
And your eyes just glaze over.
They just glaze over. You think, okay, lines crossing. Got it. Next slide. But today, we're going to stop. We're going to stop right there on that slide. We're heading specifically to the lecture halls of the Technical University of Berlin.
You are indeed. We're doing a deep dive into the Innovation Economics winter term. So this is for the courses taught by Dr. Luana Ledoux and Professor Nutblind.
So if you are a TU Berlin student right now, maybe you're trying to connect all these dots before the exam. This is basically custom built for you.
But even if you aren't, don't tune out. Because what we're unpacking today, these slides on microeconomics, intellectual property, and collaboration, they're not just for an exam.
No, they're not. They are essentially the playbook for modern business. I'd even say modern business warfare.
Warfare is a dramatic word, but I think it's accurate.
Right.
If you look at these 3 slide decks we have in front of us, they tell a complete story.
Right. We have the recap of microeconomics, then the session on intellectual property rights, or IPR, and finally, the lecture on open innovation.
And let's be honest, when you just see the titles, Microeconomics Recap, IPR Law, it can sound
A little dry.
a little dry, yeah. It sounds like vocabulary you just memorized to pass a test and then, immediately flush out of your brain.
But that's the biggest mistake you can make. These concepts aren't just academic hurdles.
No, they're the battle maps. If you want to understand why a company like BioNTech could explode onto the scene and, frankly, save the world from a pandemic while other companies vanished,
Or why Coca-Cola is still dominant after a century.
or why Google patents everything in sight, you have to understand the mechanics that we're going to talk about today.
So our mission for this deep dive is to translate those static graphs, those bullet points, into a real narrative. We want to see the story behind them.
I was looking through the notes, and I think we can structure this around 3 core pillars.
Pillars. I like that. It keeps things organized. What do you got?
Okay, so pillar 1 is the engine. That's the microeconomic theory. It explains what innovation actually is in economic terms, how you create value out of thin air.
The foundation. If you don't have the engine, you don't have a business.
Exactly. Then pillar 2, the moat.
Ah, your intellectual property rights. Once you've built this amazing engine, how do you stop people from just stealing it?
Because they will try. If your engine is good, everyone will want a piece of it.
And that brings us to pillar 3. This is the one that seems a little counterintuitive to me. The bridge.
Open innovation.
Right. Knowing when to lower your defenses, lower that drawbridge, and actually let other people in to help you win.
The engine, the moat, and the bridge. I think that's a perfect way to structure this. And for the TU Berlin students listening, if you can organize your thoughts for the exam around that logic, creation, protection, collaboration, you're going to be in a very good spot.
Okay, let's start with the engine. Let's go right back to basics with the microeconomics recap. The slides, they start by making a distinction between micro and macroeconomics.
And that's a really important distinction. People mash them together all the time in the news, but they are worlds apart.
So macro is the big picture stuff.
Think of macro as the weather report. It's inflation, unemployment, national GDP. It's the environment you live in. You can't really control it. You just, bring an umbrella.
But micro is different.
Micro is about you. It's the study of the firm's behavior. It's about the specific decisions a single manager, a single entrepreneur, makes to survive and thrive.
Okay, so the slides set a baseline here, perfect competition. Now, in a normal conversation, if I say that market has perfect competition, that sounds like a good thing. We want competition, don't we?
As a consumer, absolutely, yes. As a business owner, perfect competition is a nightmare. It is the economic definition of hell.
Wow, okay. Why is perfect so bad?
Because the model assumes a few things. First, there are tons of firms, maybe infinitely many. And second, you all produce the exact same identical product.
A commodity.
A total commodity, let's say, grade A wheat, or, standard paper clips.
Okay, so I'm selling paper clips, you're selling paper clips. They look identical, they work identically.
Precisely. And because the product is identical, the price is set by the market. You are what we call a price taker. You have no power.
So if the market price for a box of clips is €1 and I try to sell mine for €1.01.
You sell 0. Instantly. The customer just goes next door to me. You have absolutely zero leverage.
Okay, that's bad.
But here's the kicker, and this is crucial for the exam. In perfect competition, in the long run, your economic profit is zero.
Zero. How do you stay in business?
Well, you make enough to cover your costs. You pay your rent, you pay your salary. But you make no excess profit. There's nothing left over to reinvest, to grow, to innovate. You are effectively running on a hamster wheel forever.
So the entire point of business strategy, and especially of innovation, is to break that cycle, to escape.
That is it. Innovation is the attempt to escape perfect competition. And the slides show us two specific ways to do it. Two scenarios. Scenario A is process innovation.
Okay, let's visualize this. I'm looking at the slide right now. We have a graph. Prices on the vertical axis, quantity on the horizontal. There's a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping marginal cost curve.
Okay, stop right there. Marginal cost. That is a term that people nod at, but I want to make sure we really nail what it means, like on a factory floor.
I always just kind of thought it meant total cost.
No, and that's a fatal error. Marginal cost is the cost of producing one more unit. Just the next one.
Okay, so if I run a bakery.
Right. You have fixed costs, the rent for the shop, the big expensive oven. Those don't change day to day. But the marginal cost is the extra flour, sugar, and electricity it takes to bake the 1,000 first loaf of bread.
The cost of the next one. Got it.
So in scenario A, process innovation, you invent a new way to bake. Maybe you install a more efficient oven. Maybe you find a cheaper flour supplier. What happens to the graph?
Well, the slide shows the marginal cost curve, the MC curve, shifting downwards from MC1 down to MC2.
Yes, your cost floor drops.
Yeah.
It now costs you less to make that next loaf of bread than it costs your competitors.
And the graph shows two things happen as a result of this. First, the price drops. P1 goes down to P2.
Which makes perfect sense. You're more efficient, so you can afford to undercut your rivals and grab market share.
But the second thing is what I found really interesting. The quantity increases. Q1 moves out to Q2. By making it cheaper, you actually end up selling more.
That's the efficiency win. You've expanded the market, or at least your slice of it, because you're doing things better. You're still selling bread, but you are the most efficient bread seller out there. You have escaped perfect competition by becoming the low-cost leader.
Okay, so that's escape route number one. Make it cheaper.
Now, for escape route number two, this is scenario B, product innovation.
This is the sexy one.
This is the sexy one. This is the iPhone. This is the Tesla. This is creating something new.
The graph looks totally different here. The cost curve, MC, isn't moving. The slides explicitly say assumption. MC1 equals MC2. So it costs the same to make.
Right. The cost is the same, but the value is different. And you see that because the demand curve moves.
And the slides are very specific about how it moves. This is a nuance that I'm guessing Dr. Ledoux and Prof. Blind will look for. It doesn't just shift out, it becomes steeper.
Yes. The angle is everything. I'm glad you picked up on that. Why does the angle of that line matter so much?
I'm guessing it has to do with how much power you have over the price.
Exactly. In microeconomics, the slope of the demand curve is a visual representation of a concept called elasticity.
Elasticity, I remember that. It's a measure of customer sensitivity. Stickiness.
Stickiness is a great way to think about it. It measures how sensitive your customers are to price changes. If a demand curve is really flat, almost horizontal, that's perfectly elastic.
That's our paperclip seller.
That's the paperclip seller. You raise the price by 1 penny and poof, everyone leaves. Total panic.
But a steep curve.
A steep curve is inelastic. That means you can raise the price and the quantity people demand barely drops. They stick around.
Because they have nowhere else to go.
They have nowhere else to go. You've created something unique. If you're the only person selling a cure for cancer, or the only person selling a phone with an operating system people are addicted to, your demand curve is steep. You are no longer a price taker.
You're a price maker.
You are a prize maker. Steeper equals monopoly power.
In a mini sense, at least, you've carved out a little monopoly for yourself within the broader market.
Yes. So to summarize this first pillar, the engine of innovation is economically defined as your ability to either push the cost curve down, that's process innovation, or to twist the demand curve steep, that's product innovation.
You're literally warping the geometry of the market to create a space for profit.
That is the engine.
Okay.
But here is where it gets complicated, and this leads us directly into our second pillar.
The moat.
The moat.
Because, okay, I've just shifted the curve. Let's say I invent that amazing new running shoe that makes my demand curve super steep. What happens next in a market with no protection?
In a completely free market,
Yeah.
the sharks start circling immediately.
My rivals see me making all this money.
They see that steep demand curve, they see those profits, and
Mm.
they do the only rational thing. They copy you.
They buy my shoe, they take it apart, they reverse engineer it.
They clone it, and suddenly your product isn't unique anymore.
And my steep demand curve.
It flattens out. It becomes elastic again. The price drops. And you slide right back into that nightmare of perfect competition you worked so hard to escape.
So all the value I created just evaporates.
It's gone, unless you have a shield.
Yeah.
Unless you have a way to legally stop them from copying you.
And this brings us to the lecture on IPR, intellectual property rights. The slides present this as a kind of menu of options. You've got formal measures and informal measures.
Let's start with the formal ones. These are the ones people usually think of. Patents, trademarks, copyrights.
Patents seem to be the heavyweight champion here. But the slides ask a really fundamental question, which I liked. What is the deal? As in, why do we even have a patent system in the first place?
Right, because if monopolies are generally bad for consumers, which we agree they are, why would the government intentionally hand out a 20-year monopoly to an inventor? It seems contradictory.
It does.
But it's a social contract. It's a grand bargain. The logic is, if we don't protect inventions, then nobody will have an incentive to invent.
Why spend $1 billion developing a new drug
If I can just copy the formula for free the next day and sell it myself, you wouldn't. The risk would be enormous and the reward non-existent.
So the government basically bribes you to invent things.
That's a great way to put it. They say, look, if you go through the effort and expense of creating this new thing, we will let you be the only seller for 20 years. You can charge high prices. You can get rich.
But there's always a catch. Nothing is free. What's the cost to the inventor?
The cost is disclosure. In exchange for the monopoly, you have to tell the world exactly how you did it. The slides call this the teaching function of patents.
So I can't just file a patent for a magic box that cures headaches.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You have to write down in painstaking detail how the box works. The description has to be clear enough that a person skilled in the art, that's the legal term, could read it and replicate your invention.
So the government is building a giant public library of knowledge. They give you a temporary head start, but in exchange, you have to add your knowledge to the public database so that eventually everyone can learn from it and build on it.
That's the deal. It prevents knowledge from being lost or dying with the inventor.
Now, who is actually playing this patent game? The slides have this fantastic bar chart showing the top patent applicants.
Yeah, that list is very revealing.
I'm looking at it right now. It's a who's who of global tech giants. Huawei is right at the top. Then Samsung, LG, Ericsson, Siemens, Qualcomm.
It's heavily dominated by what we call complex technologies, electronics, telecommunications.
Why them specifically?
Because a modern smartphone isn't just one invention. It's a bundle of something like 4,000 different patented inventions. So these companies hoard patents like ammunition.
Ammunition, you mean for lawsuits?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
If Samsung sues Apple for infringing on 10 of their patents, Apple needs a huge pile of its own patents to sue Samsung back. It creates a standoff. It's like mutually assured destruction, but with lawyers.
That's a terrifying image. But here's what I found really surprising. The slides then pivot to talk about startups.
Yes, and this is a critical point for any of the students listening who have an idea for a business.
Right. Why should a tiny startup, maybe one coming out of a lab at TU Berlin right now, even think about patents? We always hear they're too expensive, too slow for the little guy.
This is a common misconception. The slides reference a really important analysis of over 34,000 first-time patent applications. They looked at what happens to a startup after its very first patent gets approved.
The numbers are just staggering. Startups with an approved first patent increase their number of jobs by 54.5% after 5 years.
Just think about that, 54.5% more jobs. That is explosive growth.
And their sales growth is 79.5% faster than similar startups that didn't get the patent.
So the obvious question is, why? Is it because that little startup is out there suing Google?
I mean, no, litigation is ruinously expensive. They can't afford that.
Exactly. A startup can't afford to get into a patent war with Samsung. The slides emphasize a completely different mechanism, the signaling effect.
Signaling. Okay, break that down for us.
Imagine you're a venture capitalist, an investor. Two students from TU Berlin walk into your office. They say they've invented a revolutionary new battery technology.
Okay, I'm listening.
But you're a finance person. You don't know the first thing about battery chemistry. You have no idea if they're geniuses or if they're completely delusional.
This is a classic problem. It's called information asymmetry. They know the tech. I don't.
And because of that risk, you probably don't invest. It's too much of a gamble.
Right.
But what if they walk in and slap a document on the table that says European Patent Office? Granted, how does that change the dynamic of the room?
Well, it's a stamp of approval. It's a certificate.
It's a third-party certification from a credible source.
Uh-huh.
It tells you, the investor, that an expert examiner has looked at this technology and has confirmed, yes, this is genuinely new. Yes, this is non-obvious and inventive, and yes, it actually works.
So the patent isn't just a sword to fight off competitors. For a startup, it's more like a flag to wave at investors and says, look, we're legit, we're real.
That is the primary value for a startup. It reduces the friction in getting that first crucial round of funding. It bridges that information gap.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move to the second big formal measure, trademarks.
Right. So if patents protect the function, how it works, trademarks protect the identity,
Who made it?
and the reputation that comes with that. The slide uses the definition, signal origin and quality.
And the examples here are just iconic. The first one is Coca-Cola.
The classic example. Think about the power of that brand. If I pour a generic brown fizzy soda into a clear plastic cup and ask you how much you'd pay for it, what would you say?
50 cents. a euro? Maybe.
Okay, now what if I put that exact same liquid into the iconic glass bottle with that red script label on it?
Suddenly it's worth 2-3 euros.
The liquid is identical.
Yeah.
The value is entirely in the label. The trademark is a vessel that holds all the goodwill, all the trust and positive association you've built with customers over decades.
The slides also make a great point about the family of trademarks, using McDonald's as the example. McCafe, McChicken, McMenu.
The mix strategy. This is a brilliant branding move protected by trademark law. By using that Mc prefix on everything, they link all these different products in the consumer's mind.
So if you trust the McChicken, you're more likely to trust the McCafe, even if you've never tried it.
It lowers the cognitive load for the customer. I don't have to wonder if this new coffee product is any good. It's a McCoffee. The trust transfers.
And then there's the Intel Inside strategy, which is just fascinating.
It is, because Intel makes a component. You, the consumer, never even see the processor. It's buried deep inside your laptop.
Right.
But by creating and heavily marketing the Intel Inside trademark and the slides note, they have over 9,000 trademarks, including the logo and that famous musical jingle.
Bong, 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 bong.
That sound is a registered trademark. By doing that, they made the end customer care about the component inside the machine.
And that forced the computer manufacturers to buy from them.
Dell had to use Intel processors because the customers were walking into stores and looking for that sticker on the laptop. It's a brilliant B2B2C strategy.
It's amazing that a sound can be a piece of intellectual property, just like a chemical formula.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the informal measures. Because sometimes the best way to protect your secret is, well, to just keep it a secret.
The slides list 3 main ones: secrecy, complexity, and lead time.
Secrecy is the direct alternative to the patent bargain. Remember, the patent deal requires full disclosure. If you can reliably keep your invention a secret, and it's hard for others to figure out, why tell the world how you did it?
The Coca-Cola formula is the perfect example again.
It's the most famous trade secret in history. Think about it. If they had patented the formula back in 1886, that patent would have expired in 1906.
And for the last 115 years, any generic soda company could have legally used the exact recipe.
But because they kept it a secret, they've held that monopoly for over a century. There's a huge risk, though.
What's the risk?
Trade secrets give you zero protection against independent discovery.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, if you, as a brilliant chemist, go into your lab and through your own work, figure out the exact chemical composition of Coke, you are perfectly free to make and sell it. Coca-Cola can't sue you.
So a patent stops someone from reinventing your idea on their own. Secrecy only stops them from, like, stealing your documents or bribing an employee.
Correct. So if your product is something that's easy to reverse engineer, like a simple mechanical device, secrecy is a terrible strategy. You need a patent. But if it's a complex chemical sludge that's almost impossible to analyze, secrecy is golden.
Which leads right into the next one, complexity.
Which is really just security by obscurity. You make your product so ridiculously complicated that even if someone buys it and takes it apart, they still can't figure out how to make it. You don't need a lawyer, you just need really confusing engineering.
And the last one is lead time.
That's just the first mover advantage. You just run faster than everyone else. By the time your competitors copy your version 1.0, you're already launching version 3.0. You stay ahead of the curve through sheer speed of innovation.
So, okay, we have built the engine with microeconomics. We have dug the moat with IPR. But the final stack of slides throws a real curveball.
Yes, it does.
It suggests that sometimes the best strategy is to lower the drawbridge and let people in. This is the open innovation lecture.
This represents a major shift in management thinking over the last 20 or 30 years. The old model, the 20th century model, was closed innovation.
You hire the smartest people in the field, you lock them in your corporate R&D lab, you guard the secrets with your life, and you launch the product.
And the new model says, that's too slow, it's too expensive, it's not enough anymore.
Why not?
The new model acknowledges a fundamental economic problem, knowledge spillovers.
The slides get a bit technical here. They call technical information a public good. Now, usually when I hear public good, I think of like a park or clean air.
In economics, a public good has two very specific characteristics.
Yeah.
The first is that it's non-rival.
Okay, non-rival. So if I use an idea, it doesn't stop you from using the same idea at the same time.
Perfect. If I eat a sandwich, you can't eat that same sandwich. Sandwiches are rival goods. But if I use the formula EMC2 to solve a problem, it doesn't use up the formula. You can still use it.
Right. And the second characteristic,
It's non-excludable. Once an idea is out there, published in a scientific paper, for example, or even described in a patent filing, it's very hard, if not impossible, to stop other people from learning from it and using that knowledge.
And this creates a tension. The slides say this creates a disincentive to invest in R&D.
It's the free rider problem. Why should I spend $1 billion on R&D if my competitor can just look over the fence, learn from all my expensive mistakes, and then build the same thing for a fraction of the cost?
It feels unfair. I do all the work, they get the benefit.
Precisely. So how does open innovation solve this? Well, one way is through formal cooperation. Instead of trying to prevent spillovers, you decide to formally manage them. You internalize them by agreeing to work together.
The slides mention things like research joint ventures or RJVs.
Yes. An RJV is a common structure where, say, two car companies agree to share the results of their research into electric battery technology. They might still decide on their own how much money to invest, but they agree to pool the knowledge they generate.
It reduces wasted effort. They're not both trying to solve the exact same problems in secret.
Right. Then there's a mention of RJV cartels. That word cartel always sounds illegal.
It has a bad reputation in business for sure.
But in the context of R&D economics, it just has a very specific technical meaning. It means the firms coordinate everything. They decide together how much to invest and how to share the results, all with the goal of maximizing their total joint profit.
So it's like they act as one big monopoly, but only for the purpose of research.
Exactly. And governments often allow this for R&D because it can accelerate innovation in a way that benefits society, even if they would never allow those same firms to get together and fix the prices of the final cars.
The slides also briefly bring up the Cournot model here. I remember that from basic economics.
Yeah.
That's a model of oligopoly where a few firms are competing.
Yes, and in the standard Cournot model, firms are competing by setting quantities, how many cars to produce. They're trying to grab market share from each other. But the slides use this to show how R&D cooperation changes the game.
How so?
When firms cooperate on R&D, they can lower their marginal costs more effectively than if they worked alone. This actually shifts their reaction functions, the mathematical lines that determine how much each firm chooses to produce. It changes the competitive landscape.
So it's basically saying, compete hard on the showroom floor, but it might be smart to cooperate in the research lab.
That is often the sweet spot for many industries.
Now, there is an absolute perfect example of this in the real world, and the slides highlight it heavily. BioNTech and Pfizer.
This is the aha moment. This is where all this abstract theory about spillovers and joint ventures becomes incredibly real and tangible.
Everyone knows they partnered to make the COVID-19 vaccine, but the slides reveal the backstory, the part most people miss.
Yes, look at the timeline in the slides. The key date is 2018.
2 years before the pandemic even started.
This is so important. They didn't just meet in a panic in March 2020. They had already signed a multi-year collaboration agreement back in 2018 to develop mRNA vaccines for influenza.
The seasonal flu. So they had already built the bridge between their two companies.
The trust, the legal frameworks, the communication channels, it was all in place. So when COVID-19 hit, they didn't have to start negotiating a complex contract from scratch. They just had to pivot the goal of their existing partnership.
And this case illustrates the concept of complementary assets so perfectly. Let's break down what each side brought to the table.
Okay, let's do it. What did BioNTech have?
BioNTech brought the deep tech. They were the world experts in messenger RNA technology. They understood the fundamental science of the molecule. They were the engine creators.
Absolutely. But BioNTech was, at the time, a relatively small German biotech company. Could they, on their own, run a global clinical trial with 40,000 people across 6 continents simultaneously?
No way, not quickly at least.
Could they manufacture billions of vaccine doses in a year?
Definitely not.
Did they have a global cold chain logistics network capable of shipping vaccines at minus 70 degrees Celsius to every corner of the Earth?
That's a logistical nightmare. No, they didn't have that.
That is what Pfizer brought. Pfizer brought the broad expertise. They had decades of experience running massive clinical trials, navigating complex regulatory approvals with the FDA and EMA, and they had the global manufacturing and distribution networks.
So BioNTech had the engine, the core innovation, but they desperately needed Pfizer's bridge to get that innovation to the market, to the world.
And if BioNTech had tried to go it alone, the closed innovation model, we might honestly still be waiting for that vaccine.
And if Pfizer had tried to do it alone, they would have had to invent the mRNA tech from scratch, which would have taken years.
By collaborating, they combined their complementary assets and moved at a speed that was just unprecedented in human history.
The slides say they jointly conducted clinical trials and jointly commercialized. It was a true, deep partnership.
But wait, let's connect this back to Pillar 2. Let's connect it back to the moat. Why was BioNTech, this smaller company, able to trust Pfizer, this global giant? Pfizer could have just taken the technology and run with it and crushed BioNTech.
It has to be because of the patents, right?
It has to be the patents. BioNTech held the core patents on the mRNA technology. And this revealed the great paradox of open innovation.
Which is,
You often need strong intellectual property rights, a tool of closed innovation, in order to safely practice open innovation.
wow, that is a really profound point. The patent wasn't a wall to keep Pfizer out. It was the contract, the defined piece of property that allowed them to safely let Pfizer in.
Precisely. It created a clear, legally defined asset that could be licensed and shared. Without the patent, BioNTech would have been terrified to share its deepest secrets. The patent was the foundation of trust for the collaboration.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We started with those simple-looking microeconomic graph-shifting curves to create value.
The engine.
Then we moved to patents and trademarks, the shields and the signals you use to protect that value.
The moat.
And we ended with collaboration with BioNTech and Pfizer, showing how you can scale that value by building bridges.
The bridge. If you're a student preparing for this exam, or really anyone just trying to wrap your head around this field, think of it as a life cycle, a 3-step process.
Walk us through that life cycle one last time.
Step 1, microeconomics. You find an opportunity to shift a curve, you figure out a way to make something cheaper, which is process innovation, or better and more unique, which is product innovation. That's the initial spark of creation.
Okay, step 2.
Step 2, IPR. You secure that spark. You file the patent to signal to investors that you're real and to stop your competitors from immediately copying you. You build the brand and the trust with trademarks. You build your moat.
And finally, step 3.
Step 3, open innovation. You take a hard look at your own company and you're honest about what you're missing. Do you like a sales force? Distribution, manufacturing scale. You find a partner who has those complementary assets. And then, armed with the protection of your patent, you lower the drawbridge and you build a bridge to the market to scale up.
It's a completely cohesive system. You can't really succeed in innovation management if you only understand one of these pillars.
Exactly. A brilliant engineer who doesn't understand patents will see their invention get ripped off. A great patent lawyer who doesn't understand the microeconomics of demand won't know which inventions are actually worth protecting. And a company that stubbornly refuses to collaborate will just be too slow for the modern world.
This has been a fantastic walkthrough. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners, especially the students, with one final provocative thought.
Okay.
The slides touch on this idea of the social value of an innovation versus the private value.
Ah, yes. This is the big ethical and economic question at the heart of all of this. Private value is the profit the inventing firm makes.
The money BioNTech and Pfizer made?
Right. But the social value is the total benefit the society gets. Things like curing a disease, creating cleaner air, faster communication, saved lives.
And the social value is almost always much, much bigger than the private value.
Massively bigger. Even though BioNTech and Pfizer made billions in profit, that's the private value. The value to the world of ending the pandemic lockdowns, saving millions of lives, and reopening the global economy was in the trillions. That's the social value.
So here is the question for all of you to think about. In a world facing huge collective challenges, climate change, future pandemics, resource scarcity, is our current system optimized?
That is the trillion-dollar question. Should we be loosening the patent system, making moats weaker, to encourage more knowledge spillover so everyone can use new green technologies faster? Or should we be tightening the patent system, making moats stronger to ensure that companies have a big enough private profit incentive to invest the billions needed to invent that green tech in the first place?
It's the ultimate tension between the moat and the bridge.
It is, and there is no easy answer. But as future innovation managers, entrepreneurs, and policymakers, that is the critical balance you will have to navigate.
I love that. To the students at TU Berlin, good luck with your exams. When you look at those graphs again, don't just see lines crossing on a page. See the stories of startups being born, the strategies of global giants, and the fundamental mechanics of how the world moves forward.
Indeed. Good luck, and keep innovating.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.